Listen, pals, I've been working on something pretty big for the past couple of weeks, and I gotta get it out by the end of the month. I don't want to go fully radio silent between now and then, so I'm going to cover some smaller topics instead. Topics like this one. A couple of weeks ago, the partisan right Twitter account Libs of TikTok revealed that back on January 19th, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society forced a 90-year-old volunteer whose late husband had MS to step down from her 60-year-long position with the organization. Libs of TikTok claims that the reason for the dismissal is because the woman asked what a pronoun was. Here's what the email said. Dear Fran, I hope this email finds you well. We appreciate your dedication and contribution as a self-help group leader with our organization. As we discussed earlier during our phone conversation, after a thorough review of our guidelines and standards, it has come to our attention that there has been a failure to abide by our diversity, equity, and inclusion guidelines during your time as a volunteer. Unfortunately, based on the situation, we have made the difficult decision to have you step down from your volunteer position, effective immediately. Although the Lakewood/Long Beach Self-Help Group will no longer be formally affiliated with our organization, we want to emphasize that this does not mean the end of your group's activities. You are still more than welcome to continue meeting independently from the society. While your role as a volunteer is coming to an end, we want to emphasize that you and the group are still welcome to attend and participate in the society's events and programs. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, etc., etc. Thank you for understanding. Sincerely, Callie Kumar, Manager of Community Engagement, she/her. HYUK, the woman behind Libs of TikTok, interviewed the 90-year-old and her daughter, where they confirmed that she was asked to step down for asking what the pronouns meant.
I was confused. I didn't know what it was, what it meant. And I'd seen it on a couple of letters that had come in after the person's name. They had the pronouns, but I didn't know what that meant. And so finally, when I was talking to her, I thought, I'll ask, what does it mean? And, let her tell me. And so she said it meant that they were all inclusive, which didn't make sense to me because it sounds like you're labeling for females and not males if you're just putting in she, her.
She said that she was just asking her what it meant to have a conversation. So as a 90-year-old who didn't know what it meant, she's not street savvy to find out what it meant.
Yeah.
And when she said that they were required to use it to be inclusive, and my mom was saying that we've always been, the MS Society as a whole and the Long Beach group has just always been inclusive.
A few days later, it was on a Friday at 4:58?
At 4:58, which we thought was odd, but anyway.
At the end of the day, end of the week, I got an email from her saying that they were sorry, but they had to ask me to step down as a volunteer for the MS Society.
This story went viral because of course it would. This is fucking absurd. There was tons of support from all over the internet for this granny, with some people saying that the MS Society needs to get the Bud Light treatment, in reference to what ended up being a successful consumer boycott from the right wing last year. By February 15th, right-wing mainstream news began covering the event, and in response, the MS Society put out this statement. For more than 75 years, the National Multiple Sclerosis Society has advanced one bold vision, a world free of MS. Through thousands of volunteers, dedicated staff. Okay. Recently, a volunteer, Fran Itkoff, was asked to step away from her role because of statements that were viewed as not aligning with our policy of inclusion. Fran has been a valued member of our volunteer team for more than 60 years. We believe that our staff acted with the best intentions and did their best to navigate a challenging issue. As an organization, we are in a continued conversation about assuring that our diversity, equity, and inclusion policies evolve in service of our mission, and we will reach out to Fran in service of this goal. Yeah, so this is a very diplomatic way of saying that they're doubling down. This is something they already planned to do, by the way, as revealed by a leaked internal message sent a day after the story went viral. Dear staff, yesterday a video was posted online about a National MS Society self-help group leader who was recently asked to step down from her position. The video has since gone viral, and I know many of you have received questions. We expect National MS Society volunteers to uphold the values outlined in our inclusion policy. This is especially true for those serving as self-help group leaders. This important position is responsible for creating a safe and inclusive space for people affected by MS to confide in and support one another. We celebrate learning and personal growth. We would not dismiss a volunteer because they asked questions about the Society's inclusive practices. Volunteers are the life force of our organization, and we are deeply grateful to anybody who contributes their time, talent, and energy to helping people with MS live their best lives. Anytime the difficult decision is made to part ways with a volunteer, it is made with thought and care. No one should ever feel unsafe at work. We are doing everything we can to support the staff involved in this situation. You are welcome to share this information with any constituents who reach out to you for more information, but please refrain from posting or engaging directly on social media. For documentation, please share any correspondence with us. If you receive any media requests, please alert us as well. If you need additional support in responding, please work with your department head, and let us know if you're experiencing harassment or you're feeling unsafe. The woman responsible for letting Fran go, Callie Kumar, ended up scrubbing her online presence, and the MS Society took down their staff listing page. In fact, aside from that one public statement, the MS Society has chosen to just let the whole thing blow over, and it basically has at this point. The various right-leaning Twitter accounts have moved on to newer events, and this story is rapidly fading from the public eye. They don't actually seem to be getting that Bud Light treatment, probably because the two different organizations and their relationship with the public is very different. Here's the truth, guys. When someone comes to cancel you, whether or not the canceling is justified, the best you can do is simply move on. You'll get some heat for a while, but it'll die down on its own. A canceling attempt usually only continues if the target actively feeds it, by continuing to bring it up every time they show up online. Something that, for example, Vosh is learning the hard way right now. What's at the core of the story, though, is that Granny Franny lost her volunteer position over pronouns. The people from the MS Society all put pronouns in their emails as a part of their formal signature. Like where you put your name and your professional titles, they also put their pronouns. Now, I've spoken about pronouns before on this channel. In one past video, I went over the pronouns Wikipedia, yes, there's a pronouns Wikipedia, and laughed at some of the weird neo-pronouns and xeno-pronouns that are available for any progressive young snowflake to adopt. In another video, I went over the push for pronouns in the workplace, where HR departments were scheduling educational seminars in order to normalize the use of pronouns in signatures and directly stating your pronouns when you introduce yourself. But this time, I want to go over the function of a pronoun. Let's start with this TikTok. I'm sure I've covered this on a past TikTok Tuesday. It went giga-viral back in early 2023. We could all use a refresher.
So if I was hiring and I saw pronouns, here's what I'm gonna assume. I'm gonna assume you're obviously very liberal. So I'm gonna assume you're one of those people that is super far left. Hey, I'm gonna assume you're not a very hard worker. You are either a female or you're a probably not straight guy. So everything in the office is gonna have to cater to you, your feelings, your needs, and your emotions. So everyone around you is not gonna be able to be themselves and walk on eggshells. Why would anyone want someone like you unless everyone's like you in a work environment? You're going to be the laziest person. You're going to be the most entitled, complain the most, and I think you're going to be the first to sue. So shocker that pronouns weren't helping you guys. Sorry, is there anything I missed there?
What this woman is referring to is the practice of putting your pronouns in your work resume, and how it turns out that doing so actually lowers your chances of getting a job interview. And the reason that she gives is that people who do this sort of thing are very progressive, and therefore they're likely to be very woke-scoldy. They're likely to bully others in the workplace into compliance, and they're also likely to sue the company if they don't get their way. And frankly, there's probably a lot of truth to that. Here's what a pronoun actually is, for those of you who didn't make it through grade school. A pronoun is a word that stands in for a noun, generally in order to prevent repetition. So instead of saying, I saw Dev today, Dev was walking down the street, you would say, I saw Dev today, he was walking down the street. The he is the pronoun to the noun Dev. The pronoun attached to the noun provides additional information about the subject of the noun, in this case that Dev is a man, though I know a few of you disagree. There's a whole bunch of different pronouns for different use cases. The first person subject pronoun is I, aka I is used when the person speaking is speaking about themselves. The first person object is me. Here's a handy chart showing off all the various combinations. These are all pronouns. By the way, this makes it really funny when a rightoid on Twitter says, I can't believe you got a pronoun, and a leftoid Ghibli replies, does this person not know what pronouns are? Because, yeah dude, we've all got pronouns, and we all use them every day. But the important thing about this conversation is what I said earlier, that a pronoun attached to a noun provides additional information about the subject of the noun. I am the subject of the noun Dev, and when he is used in place of Dev, that's communicating not only the subject being spoken about, but the gender of the subject. It's that extra information embedded in the pronoun that all of this fuss is over. A third-person pronoun tends to only be used when the subject isn't present. Let's say that you and I are having a conversation about Naomi. The first-person position in the conversation is me. The second-person position is you. From my point of view anyway. You reverse it for yours. And the subject of the conversation, Naomi, she's the third-person position. Now, because it's rude to talk about a person while they are there staring you in the face, generally, if you're going to have a conversation about a third-person subject that isn't an object or an animal, but a person, that person isn't going to be present. So when you and I talk about Naomi, Naomi's not in the conversation. Therefore, when we use she to refer to Naomi, Naomi's not going to be there to hear it. What this means is that when somebody states their pronouns in their bio, or in their professional emails, or in their resume, they are specifically stating their third-person subject and object pronouns, as in the type of pronouns that you're generally not actually around to witness their use. Therefore, when somebody is stating their pronouns, it's a request for you to speak about them using these words when they're not present. And if they demand you use these pronouns, they are demanding that you speak about them in a specific way when they're not present. Understanding this, it's pretty easy to see why a person presenting their pronouns rubs people the wrong way a lot of the time. There's an implied demand there of control of your speech while you're in private. This is what that woman who owns a business was getting at in that viral TikTok, when she was talking about seeing pronouns in a resume. A person willing to make that type of demand of another person's private speech right there in the resume before even meeting anybody face to face, that just seems like a whole bunch of trouble from the get-go. Nevertheless, the practice is growing. When Jordan Peterson first rose to prominence over pronouns back in 2016, the debate seemed almost silly. Lots of people assumed this stuff would remain in hyper-lefty spaces, on-campus progressive groups, radical sections of the internet. But I knew better. Having received a thoroughly leftist university education in the late 2000s, covering stuff like critical theory and gender and anarchism and Marxism, I knew that there was an escalatory effect built into the philosophy. Other people like me, we were the anti-SJWs of 10 years ago, rejected the radical left not out of a hatred of the working class or out of homophobia or anything like that. It was because we knew where the march of progress was heading before it got there. We were the ones sounding the alarm on this shit. And so, when the 2016 Jordan Peterson thing happened, we knew that the excuses of "it'll just stay on campus" rang hollow. Those 20-something millennial college kids would become 30-something millennial workers soon enough. Now this is broader than just pronouns, and one day I'll do a video discussing exactly what happened to the left between the 90s and now. But insofar as pronouns are concerned, presenting them in this way functions like a virtue signal. When your pronouns are in your bio, or on your resume, or at the end of your email, you're signaling that you belong to a specific in-group with specific beliefs. And as the use of pronouns in this way has become more prevalent over time, not putting them in your bio, or on your resume, or at the end of your email has become, in its own way, a different signal that you belong to a different in-group. Let me show you what I mean. This is from the UK group Inclusive Employers. Why put pronouns in email signatures? Well, to not only show support and solidarity for our transgender and non-binary friends in our acceptance of all genders, but to hopefully ease the burden on our trans and non-binary colleagues and acquaintances from having the same conversations again and again. Being an ally every day is important. Having pronouns in your signature can set a norm and encourage others to do the same. What they're getting at here is that because a lot of trans people, not all of them, but a lot, they have some problems passing. The gender conversation becomes uncomfortable to constantly have. And if only trans people publicly present their pronouns, then the practice is like a spotlight on them that they're trans. So if everybody publicly presented their pronouns, then the discomfort trans people feel should be eliminated. Therefore, trans activists feel like it's a moral duty for everyone to publicly present their pronouns, and normalizing that behavior is political activism for them. Of course, most people still don't do this, and a lot of those normies don't recognize that it's not really about the pronouns themselves. I'm a man, my pronouns are he, him, but when I say it that way, it's not just harmlessly informing you of information that you should already be able to pick up on intuitively by looking at me. It's a declaration that I'm a part of that activist normalization, and that's why most people feel uncomfortable with doing it, even if they can't articulate that as the reason. When a normal, politically disengaged person sees a passing trans woman, they'll knee-jerk to using she, not he, because the proper use of a pronoun is to communicate an intuition that the speaker has about the person in question. When you use she, you're not really saying, "I know you're female, I know you have functioning ovaries," or whatever. What you're saying is, you look feminine enough that I'm comfortable making certain assumptions about your biology, assumptions that might be wrong, and that's what passing is. Probably the most affirming thing a trans person can earn is somebody else's intuition. But the key word is earn. Progressives don't like that idea, that it must be earned. We went over this in my recent fat activism video, where intersectional theory requires that privilege is never earned through proper behavior, even though it obviously is. That idea applies here too. Relying on other people's intuition means that non-passing transsexuals don't get the same affirmation from society as passing ones do, making the activism of normalizing presenting your pronouns necessary for their political project. Moreover, using pronouns in this way isn't actually that simple. There's many instances of progressive people pushing randoms to virtue signal with their pronouns, and canceling them when they explicitly say that they recognize the normalization process and refuse to assist it. For example, that was at least part of the blowback that Gina Carano received. But there's also many instances where transsexuals themselves don't yet feel comfortable publicly presenting their pronouns because they're not out of the closet. In these cases, progressives tend to harass their targets out of the closet in the name of inclusivity, entirely oblivious to the fact that they're causing way more problems that they'll ever solve. And like I said earlier, not using your pronouns in this way has become its own in-group signal. The New York Times ran a Q&A piece titled, "Do I really need to state my pronouns?" My firm asked all employees to add our pronouns to our email signatures to promote inclusivity. So I did. He, him, his. I'm in sales, and I send out hundreds of outreach emails every week. Today, a potential customer replied, not interested. He said he was turned off by the unnecessary pronoun thing. I support inclusivity, but this interaction made me wonder about the risks and rewards of my company's policy. My email signature isn't suddenly going to make anyone more welcoming to non-binary people, but some may be turned off by it. When the customer here says that he was turned off by the unnecessary pronoun thing, he likely can't articulate why. And if he was pushed by an educated, knowledgeable activist to do so, he'd probably end up with egg in his face. But he's intuiting what I've been directly describing in this video. Stating pronouns isn't just presenting information neutrally, it's also stating an allegiance to a specific political point of view. I've done videos in the past on other political symbology, like flags and standards, and pins and armbands, and this type of thing falls into that category. It's a public display of your politics. If you genuinely believe in the virtue of those politics, then wearing that armband or that MAGA hat or that pride pin has the same basic function as a Christian wearing a crucifix or a Muslim wearing a hijab. However, if you hate that specific mode of politics, you'll likely be offended at people who wear the symbol of the politics publicly. My video documenting people attacking MAGA hat wearers proves that well enough. The liberal answer to this has always been pluralism. In the public square, everyone should be free to display whatever political allegiance they like, even if you find it distasteful. In the private sphere, it's inappropriate to force people to declare their political allegiance against their will. I think this is one of the reasons why the more libertarian types compare progressives to fascists. Both ideologies have a history of requiring the private individual to forthrightly declare their political allegiance, and it better be to them, or else they're going to pay a price. And to bring it all the way back to the original story, the price for Fran was losing her position with the MS Society, even though she's fucking 90 and has no idea what any of this nonsense is. She signaled, however inadvertently, that she wasn't a part of the group, which made it inappropriate for an organization that operates by progressive morality to continue to associate with her. But once again, I'm not a progressive. I'm a liberal. I actually believe in pluralism, not the bastardization of it that diversity initiatives have wrought, but the real deal. A liberalism that is unashamed of being liberal. People shouldn't be losing their jobs or their volunteer positions or getting expelled from schools over any of this stuff. This isn't good. Okay guys, that about does it for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. Do you want to see more dev action? Well, someone very graciously sent some donations with the attached demand that we use them to go watch the Wonka movie. So Naomi and I did just that. Click on the video on screen, you can watch us talk about it. I'll see you over there, guys. Hope you enjoy it. Have a good one. I love you.